Hey, it's Janelle Waz and welcome back to another Star Trek video. There are a lot of defining characteristics of Star Trek. Space exploration, diplomacy, red shirts biting the dust, stuff like that. But one of the things that almost every fan has picked up on is that Star Trek shows usually take some time to find their niche. Some might even go as far to say that the first season of any Star Trek show is arguably the worst season. This is especially true for Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the most beloved Star Trek shows. In fact, it might be hard to convince a newcomer to stick to the show because, I swear, it gets better! Which begs the question, should you skip the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation altogether? Yes. Well, that might be a little harsh. Season 1 certainly has its fans, and there are some decent episodes in that season. However, general consensus among fans is that Season 1 is Next Gen's weakest season. If you want to get into this great Star Trek show but are nervous about the first season, or maybe you know someone who's interested in getting into the show, stay tuned. We're boldly going where every Next Gen fan has unfortunately been. Alright, let's start with the giant tribble in the room. Why is Season 1 skippable? What is it about this season that prompted this video? Well, the answer is twofold. First, let's discuss the nature of the show. Star Trek The Next Generation, like its predecessor, is largely episodic. While some episodes do have an impact on future events, for example, the two-parter The Best of Both Worlds, you can get by watching later episodes without seeing earlier ones. The episodes usually provide enough context for new viewers to enjoy the story. Keep in mind that this was in the days before streaming services. Heck, long before the days of streaming services. You couldn't binge a show in a month, and maybe there was a chance you missed episodes here and there over the weeks. Maybe you tuned into Star Trek most weeks, but then Aunt Mabel decided she needed to celebrate her 90th birthday during the Best of Both Worlds Part 1, and she didn't have cable and none of your relatives were into Star Trek. Or I suppose you could have set up the VCR, but then something could always go wrong. And then I suppose there are reruns, but you get my point. If you missed an episode, it could be difficult to go back and catch what you missed. Because of that, most episodes were pretty self-contained. In fact, a lot of episodes are almost never brought up again. And again, there are a few exceptions. Do the Akamarians ever get mentioned again? How about that time Lloyd Braun messed up Troy's hair and she started dating him? Or what about the planet of Mr. Sheffield cosplayers? Or that imaginary friend that terrorized the ship? Season 1 is no different. A lot of episodes, with some exceptions, are self-contained and never mentioned again. Although why nobody mentioned this Riker outfit again is beyond me.
I gotta say, it's, kinda sexy.
Now, let's discuss the other reason why Season 1 is skippable. Simply put, it's not very good. There were quite a few growing pains for the show, and it definitely shows. The cast during the first season is very stiff, and it's clear that they haven't settled into the characters. Heck, even the characters weren't settled into the characters, with the characters being quite different later on. Picard is more combative and yelly in the first season, Troy's accent is all over the place, Data goes back and forth between seeming almost human and a little bit too much like his evil brother Lore, and being an android. Riker doesn't have a beard. Beverly, she's mostly just there as a kinda love interest for Picard, but not really. But yes. And young Wesley? Well, Wesley's just annoying in the entire show. Not much has changed there.
Shut up, Wesley.
Besides the characters, the first season just has a low-quality feeling to it. The sets look like they came out of the original series era. Yes, I know in the later seasons every planet looks like Southern California, but here it looks like they're filming in front of a screen with some props in front of it. The music is very cheesy, and this is coming from someone who loves 80s cheese. I expect Star Trek to be epic and grandiose, not something that Mystery Science Theater would riff on.
That it is start time, I'm transferring command to the battle bridge.
When you think about it, we're always taught to put your best foot forward, and that first impressions matter, whether for a job interview or for meeting new people in general. But this?
Such a thing.
Look, I'm glad the show took off because what we got was a really great sci-fi show that mostly holds up pretty well today. But that first season... ouch. With all that being said, you may still want to trudge your way through Season 1, or maybe you went through the entire show and want to see Season 1 for a sense of completeness. Or maybe you just want to watch whatever episodes are necessary to move on to better seasons. Either way, what episodes are worth watching? For one thing, you should watch Encounter at Farpoint, if only for the introduction of Q and the fact that the series finale All Good Things, my favorite Star Trek finale by the way, comes full circle with this episode. It's not the greatest, but it does introduce the characters and sets the show up. Not to mention that Dr. McCoy cameo is pretty great.
You treat her like a lady, and she'll always bring you home.
Where No One Has Gone Before is also worth a watch. It's a decent episode as far as Season 1 episodes go, and it has some nice moments. I especially love the scene of Picard's vision of his mother.
This can't be. You've been
Dead, but I'm always with you. You know that.
It also introduces the Traveler, who comes up a couple of times in the show. He's not a big part of the show, but it's nice to know who he is. While the Ferengi in Next Gen are more of a joke than anything else, and DS9 really redeemed them, the battle is also worth viewing. It has a sequel in Season 7, although the actor for the Ferengi Bach was recast. Also, did anyone really ask for a sequel to this episode? But that's another story. The battle is one of the better episodes of the first season, and probably serves as a better Ferengi episode than the first Ferengi episode, The Last Outpost. Now, I know I'm going to get some flack for including this one in my list, but Haven at the very least introduces Deanna Troy's mother, Waxana. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Waxana, but I do, so I'm including this episode in this list. Come on, it's Majel Barrett, the First Lady of Star Trek. How could I not include her in this list?
Which of these would look best on me naked?
Not that The Big Goodbye has a long-term impact on the show, but it is a fan favorite. It's also the first of many holodeck episodes, which allowed Star Trek to break into other genres, from Sherlock Holmes to James Bond-esque to cheesy 40s sci-fi movies. In the case of this episode, a 1940s detective novel. It's a decently fun episode and worth a watch. You should also watch Data Lore, since it provides some background for Data, the crystalline entity which destroyed the colony Data was built at, and Data's brother Lore. It showcases Brent Spiner's range as an actor, going back and forth between the stoic Data, who desires to be human, and the smart aleck Lore. Definitely put this one on your list of episodes to watch.
I say tomato, and you say tomato. I say potato, and you say potato.
You could also watch 11001001, but the only reason I would put it on this list is because the hologram minuet comes up in a decent later episode, but only for about a minute. There's also Skin of Evil, which features the death of Tasha Yar, which has repercussions later in the show, but honestly, you can probably skip this episode too, because all you really need to know is that Tasha died, and that's why she's not in the crew anymore. Finally, there's the season finale, The Neutral Zone, which features the first appearance of the Romulans in Next Gen. There's a side plot about 20th century people found cryogenically frozen, which I found amusing, but really this serves as an introduction to the Romulans in the Next Gen era, so it's worth a watch for that. So those are some episodes to maybe watch if you don't want to completely skip Season 1 of Next Gen. The other episodes are either forgettable or can be skipped without consequence. But let's say you want to skip Season 1 anyways. Honestly, I don't blame you. What season should you start with? At what point does the show become watchable? The truth is, you can really jump in at any time. Again, this is a very episodic show. But a particular season? I would suggest starting with either Season 2 or 3. While Season 2 still has its growing pains, it had a major upgrade from Season 1, and it's probably what the show should have been from the start. The sets are much better and feel more realistic, the cast has settled into their characters more, and the episodes are pretty decent, with some exceptions. The main issue a lot of fans have with Season 2 is Dr. Pulaski, who replaced Dr. Crusher for Season 2. Personally, I've come to appreciate Dr. Pulaski over the years. Heck, I even did a whole video defending her. but Dr. Pulaski may determine how much you like Season 2. Season 3 is, in my opinion, where the show started to get really good. The show has become much more polished, continuing to improve after Season 2. Better sets, better music, heck, even the uniforms are better. The stories are better, the cast finally has a solid grip on their characters, which would continue through the show, and there are a lot of classic Trek episodes in Season 3. The show feels less like a show from the 80s and much more like a timeless piece of sci-fi. Dr. Crusher makes her return in Season 3, pleasing many fans, and there are some great character-focused episodes. Honestly, you can't go wrong starting here. And that's my opinion of whether you should skip Season 1 of Star Trek The Next Generation. But what about you? Do you agree with my assessment of Season 1? Do you think everyone should have to sit through the first season, or is it acceptable to skip it? Do you agree with the episodes I mentioned that are worth watching, or are there some that I missed? And where do you think newcomers should start? Please leave a comment below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another Star Trek video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
Let's see what's out there.